We are joined by Tom Fitton. He is the president of Judicial Watch. And, Tom, I got to tell you, all this hand-wringing over these relatively minor redactions in the Mueller report that, by the way, my understanding is Attorney General Barr didn't even legally have to release at all, but they held him in contempt because he didn't release enough of it to them. I thought of you immediately because, boy, how many years have you been waiting for unredacted information via FOIA requests?
Oh, well, the Justice Department routinely ignores the Freedom of Information Act, and we have to go to court. Every time we have to sue an agency, it means that someone in the federal bureaucracy isn't obeying the law. And in the case of the Justice Department, it's been stonewalling Congress in a variety of fronts and much more substantially than the fake fight that Nadler has chosen to fight over. He'd rather fight over documents that he knows he probably doesn't have the right to get access to easily, if at all, as opposed to getting these core documents like the underlying FISA applications, or how about all those text messages between various FBI and Justice Department officials about efforts to overthrow the president. They don't have any interest in that.
Well, and by the way, not only do they have an interest in it, but Robert Mueller, the guardian angel of justice in America, isn't it true that his team wiped clean the iPhones that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were using to send all those anti-Trump texts back and forth? How is that not obstruction of justice?
Yes, there was a document wipe that took place. They pretend it was accidentally, but again, that would be the sort of thing that you might want to be investigating. But this is not about investigating or conducting oversight. This is all part of that seamless web of abuse that began during the Obama administration, continued through the Mueller operation, and now the cudgels have been picked up by Nadler and company to attack and try to remove President Trump before the election.
When I looked at the proceedings yesterday, part of me, of course, I'm political. I wear my politics on my sleeve. I believe in my party and my beliefs. But in a bigger sense, I was really angry at how the Judicial Committee of the House was being politicized by these people who are using it as a weapon against their political opponent. That committee is supposed to be bigger than this, aren't they?
Well, the contempt power of Congress is a serious power, and it ought to be wielded in serious circumstances. And to quickly jump the gun and assume and presume that the Attorney General is in contempt over a document fight that's just a few weeks old shows you this willingness to abuse the powers of government. As I said earlier, in essence, what they're saying is they'd be willing to put the Attorney General of the United States in jail over a few lines of text that currently not being made available to Congress. And that sort of extreme position shows you that it kind of tells you why we are at the state we're in, and why people objected to the Mueller operation, and why people were suspicious of what the FBI and Justice Department were doing during the Obama administration in terms of spying and other things.
I got to ask you that James Comey is going to have a town hall tonight on Anderson Cooper's show on CNN. I'm sure you'll watch, Tom Fitton.
Yeah.
First, just the idea of a former FBI director, being the star of a TV show on cable news and doing a town hall, it's such a political act. That's highly irregular, isn't it?
Yeah, unless he's taking the fifth, I don't think we'll get much information out from him. Look, this is an FBI director who knowingly took documents that didn't belong to him. These are FBI files on President Trump, recounting conversations he allegedly had with him. And then on purpose, he leaked them to the New York Times in order to get a special counsel appointed. Yeah. Why this man is given the time of day as opposed to not being criminally investigated, well, wait, he is being criminally investigated, is beyond me.
If we know that we've got the Mueller report, I know you were highly critical of the entire operation, but we did get the conclusion that there wasn't even a whisper of conspiracy between the Russian government and the Trump campaign, and all the things that we've been fed for the last 2.5 years were false. And what do you make of the Senate Intel Committee, headed by a Republican, issuing a subpoena for Donald Trump Jr. to answer questions regarding this matter? This is a closed matter, is it not?
Well, it's only closed if you're sensible. The goal isn't to get the truth. The goal is to abuse the powers of government to target the Trump world. And, Senator Barr has long turned over the keys to his committee to the minority run by Senator Warner I think he's from Virginia, right?
Yes, he is. He is our senator in
Virginia.
So
the idea that the Republicans are running that committee is a fiction, practically speaking, as indicated by this abusive subpoena targeting the president's son. But getting back to this Mueller report, though, Larry, briefly.
Yeah, sure.
As you know, I never thought this report should have been written. Sure enough, it was written, and it was written in a way to try to smear President Trump. And now, of course, the Democrats are manufacturing a constitutional fight over it. And it just shows you that the processes of government are still subject to being abused, by the deep staters and their partisan allies on the Hill here. There's a constitutional crisis here. It isn't what the left says it is. This is an assault on the rule of law by partisan operatives on the Hill. I appreciate the way Barr ran this operation in terms of making sure the gravamen of the report was released accurately. But if I were him, I would have just come in and shut the whole darn thing down because, it was pretty clear what the writing on the wall was. This is just another vehicle to attack the president, and it's not going to stop as long as he's president.
Our guest is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Only a minute left, but I know that you've been very active in trying to uncover the abuses with regard to the FISA warrants, with regard to the initiation of this investigation back in 2016. Do you believe this assault on Attorney General Barr is connected to the Democrats trying to undermine him as he also pursues that investigation?
I mean, if they think they're upset with him now, imagine if he actually starts talking about criminal prosecutions of some of the officials who are involved in lying to the courts or misusing and abusing their offices to target people for political purposes.
Right.
Then they'll really start screaming because, in a just world, Barr might be investigating some of the members of Congress who are targeting him now.
Whoa, be more specific there. That's kind of a big...
Well, I mean, do you think that operation against Donald Trump was limited to shuffling classified information or misusing classified information only to the media? No, they were shuffling it to Congress. Do we think that Fusion GPS was only working with the media? No, of course they were working with Congress at the time. And I suspect that's what any honest investigation will find, that you had key members of Congress involved in this effort to overthrow the presidency and target President Trump during the campaign.
That's pretty big stuff there from Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch, of course, now that the Democrats have the levers of power in the House, Judicial Watch really is the only oversight we've got in this town. So thank you for doing what you do, Tom. And I think that's going to raise some eyebrows, that last statement there. And I think it makes sense.
Already know that they were desperate to get classified information. We've got the documentation. They were shuffling improperly classified information. The Democrats and allied Republicans on the Hill just before Trump was inaugurated. The one email says we made the deadline, which was the inauguration date.
We will keep looking at that. Tom Fitton knows this stuff. That's why we like to have him on a regular basis. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.